Hello everybody, a very warm welcome. La Corsa Rosa, the 97th Giro d'Italia, the purest Grand Tour, and a race that is always as beautiful as it is challenging. Hello and a very, very warm welcome. Already at the start of the race, Belfast Titanic. This year we start in Ireland. Colombia will be our first team off. 3,500 kilometres await us from Belfast to Trieste. An average of 160.4 per stage. Clockwise around Italy once we reach there. A roll call of classic Italian climbs, including Europa, Monte Campione, Val Martello, the Passo dello Stelvio, Monte Grappa. And this year's Giro will be decided by the brilliant, huge, amazing Monte Zoncolan on stage 20. So our first team almost ready to go. Belfast Titanic to City Hall today, 21.7 kilometres. The opening stage of the race takes place in Belfast, taking in 2 counties, both down and Antrim today. Split times for the teams coming twice, and this is where they'll finish. Belfast City Hall. Already it's been sunny at certain points during the day. There's bits of wind and rain around the course. Riders off by lottery. They drew them yesterday. And they will be going away every 5 minutes or so. Donegal Square is where we finish. And everybody's been building up to this for the last few weeks. The city has been painted pink. Everything is pink. The Giro has been welcomed wonderfully by the local public. And this is the start of what is a huge, huge year for cycling in this particular part of Europe. These isles over here, Great Britain, the Republic of Ireland as well. It is going to be Giro first, then Tour de France. Excitement is building, and yes, of course, the British Team Sky will be competing. Colombia ready. Colombia waiting 1.5 minutes, and we'll be off.
2014 from Belfast to Belfast, 21.7 kilometers. Ladies and gentlemen, clap your hands for Team Colombia from Colombia.
97th edition of the Giro d'Italia. It's 2014. It's an Irish start. We start in Northern Ireland today in its capital, Belfast. Tomorrow we'll have a road stage around here. But today it is the 22nd team time trial on the Giro d'Italia, the 8th time that we have started with such a discipline. In the Titanic Quarter, where the ship of the famous name set off to Southampton after it was built in these very, very yards. Of course, as you can see, famous around the world, the most important ocean liner of its era. Let's hope, though, that the organisers aren't trying to tell us something here and we don't have a sinister end to this Giro d'Italia. As you can see, the crowds are waiting. Team Colombia ready. They'll be the first off. Other names to look out for. Just second, Orica Greenedge coming up after them. But this is the team that Colombia have brought to the Giro d'Italia, led by Valerio Tebaldi. All the support team is Italian. All the riders are Colombian. They're led by Fabio Duarte.
15 seconds.
Destiny wanted these riders on the start line in Belfast. Who will it choose to align on the finish in Trieste in 3 weeks' time, and in what order? The Giro d'Italia is all ready to begin here. The 97th edition of the Corsa Rosa is off. Colombia on the road, and it's a very, very good afternoon. Commentating on the home soil to Sean Kelly.
Yes, good afternoon. Lovely conditions, as Rob said. A little bit changing during the day, but sunshine in the last while, so it's looking good at the moment. Hopefully continue on in that way, because the way the teams are starting lottery, it would be unfortunate if some of the teams out early maybe get dry conditions, and then we could see a change in conditions. It wouldn't be nice and it wouldn't be fair for the team, so hopefully it holds up. It's certainly going to be a spectacular team time trial here, and the people have been out this morning on the warm-up. We're out there on the circuit. The number of people out there was amazing, and as we can see here immediately, huge crowds.
Colombia, wildcard entrance for the 2nd season running at the Giro d'Italia. They've had problems with visas, more of which we'll go into over the next couple of days. 15 Colombians were supposed to be on the line. Of course, 9 of them are in this team. In the end, those visas taking just 1 out the race. We have 14 Colombian riders in this Giro d'Italia. Breakfast first, Sean. You've seen the course this morning. It's particularly hard in places, but that's probably more because of the weather than anything, isn't it?
Yes, well, this morning I think it was blowing, wind was very, very strong. I think it calmed down a bit. It was really blustery. It was blowing in all directions. I went out there and rode the course on my bike. But other than that, from a technical point of view, it's a very nice course. There's two corners which you have to knock your speed off a bit, but other than that, you can go full on in dry conditions. But if we get the rain, that will definitely change it, because the guys travelling at 50+ kilometres per hour, you really have to knock down your pace, your speed in some of the corners. So hopefully again that we will get dry conditions right through here. But as we can see here, you know, most of the route for the time trial is wide roads, so it's perfect for team trial time. Plenty of room, certainly.
Well, we know that there's some more initiated than others in the schooling of time trialling. Sean, for our new viewers, could you just run through what a team time trial is, how it works and how it affects the race?
Well, team trial time, of course, it's an art, and it's something that some teams have, you know, a lot of time trial specialists. And when you look at some of the teams starting here, we were talking about just some time ago, some of them have a lot of very good time trials, and that is an advantage. The Colombian team here, for example, you know, they wouldn't be the strongest in time trialing, so, you know, they're going to be up against it, and I think to limit their losses, that's what they will be trying to do in this team time trial today. But it's very nervous times for everybody, especially the teams who have got the big favourites to win this race. Everybody who wants to contribute to their best, and it is real nervous times, because if you're not at your best in the team time trial, well, then you don't perform as expected, as is expected from your team, then you can be very disappointing, and you're leaving down your leader as such on the first day. So everybody is really nervous, and you could see that already this morning out when they're warming up. A lot of the teams, the riders, were really concentrating 100% already at 9:30 this morning.
Well, we're going to have one of the favourites up next. That will be Orica Green Edge. We'll talk about their fantastic formation in a minute. The Colombians, though, of course, they're not particularly well known for this discipline, are they, Sean? And we wait to see them in the mountains. For them, as you say, it's about limiting the losses, isn't it?
Yes, well, limiting the losses is the case. And, you know, the route here of this Giro, the final week is very difficult. So if you can hang in there and, you know, stay at 3 or 4 minutes and you're a really good climber, well, then you can move up in general classification. And as we know, the Colombians, you know, there's very few of them real strong in individual time trial. So in team time trialing here, you know, it's going to be a difficult one for them, and you will see as well as we go on in the time trial, I think it will get a little bit unorganised when you start getting tired, where the real strong teams like Orica Green Edge, like Sky, for example, you know, they will, you know, be working like a clock right to the very end, to the finish of this time trial.
We'll see how many Colombians last to the end. Remember, fifth rider across the line is where the time is taken. 9 men teams here in the Grand Tours. And this is the view back on the start podium, back at the Titanic. All the ships hoping to stay afloat here on the team time trial today. No rain at the minute, and it is time for Orica Green Edge. Some would say, looking at their lineup, Sean, that they've based their Giro d'Italia around getting the pink jersey and winning this stage. They came second last year at the World Trade Team Champions, Time Trial Championships, pardon me, but with men like Svein Tuft, who is 37, by the way. Happy birthday to him. You've got Cameron Meyer, Michael Matthews, Lancaster, Durbridge. This is a strong, strong team time trial outfit.
Yes, you know, 4 or 5 really good individual time trials. You put them together in a team, and you know, they will really put in a big performance here. And I think we heard there earlier on some of the interviews. If it comes to the end, they will try and get Matthews to the front to come over the line, because then he will be in that top position, possibly for a number of days, stay in pink jersey. But the first thing is to put in a good ride here, and I think they will be the one to they will post up the best time. I think Orica Green Edge's time should stand up for quite a time here today.
Well, Orica Green Edge out now. It's at 5 to 6 local time, wherever you're watching around the world. I know there will be plenty of Australians tuning in down under in the middle of the night. Hello to you. Well done for staying up. However, you've managed to do it. Here are your boys out on the road, and it's a very, very solid team time trial that awaits them. They're a team that cannot stop winning at the minute. Simon Gerrans did it in Liège. Michael Albazzini, 3 stage wins at home in the Tour de Romandie last week. And again, taking home wins should really bear their objective here, rather than any serious challenge for the overall prize. I think looking at them, they might let Cameron Meyer getting a ride on GC to see what he can do, but there's no real contender for the overall. It's all about stage wins for this lot.
Yes, I think stage wins is going to be the top priority for them. The team time trial, as we mentioned, is going to be, you know, the big objective here. And you know, the team that takes the time trial here, of course, it gets the pink leader jersey, and that is a big thing. If you can take the jersey, you know, for a day or for a number of days, well, then you have got publicity, you've got exposure for the team so early in the race, and it relaxes everybody, and that's often the time then we see, you know, the team going on and taking a number of stages after that.
So 1.5 minutes into the Giro d'Italia for Orica Green Edge. Remember the last time that we started with a team time trial, it was HTC Columbia. The time before that, it was the same team, then just named Columbia. Marco Pinotti in the pink a couple of years ago. Before that, Mark Cavendish. They're no longer around. Orica Green Edge, one of the favourites here. Very well, welcome back. You're watching stage one of the 97th Giro d'Italia with Sean Kelly and me, Rob Hatch. Whilst you've been away in the break, Columbia have already lost one man. Robinson Chalapud off the back. There with 8. And Sean, this is where the road surface starts to change a little on the climb.
Yes, well, this is it's a difficult section up here to Stormont. It just kicks straight up, and this morning you could see that the riders and the teams, they were having difficulty, as we can see here again. You know, another Colombian rider getting into difficulty. The surface is very, very heavy here. The bike doesn't roll at all, and we can see 2 riders from Colombia losing contact already.
Problems then for Colombia. Remember, they've got to get 5 riders across the line together. Tinkoff Saxo time. They've saved Alberto Contador for the Tour de France this year, but they still come to the Giro with ambition to win, and they're led by one of the 3 Irishmen on the line. 2 of these Irishmen hoping to win the Giro d'Italia, one of which, Sean, who's Nicholas Roche.
Yes, well, I think Nicholas, he's been, you know, performing real well, getting better, improving all the time in the big stage races. This is going to be a real important one for him to do something in the general classification. And, you know, when you look at the way he's performing, I think coming better all the time, coming at the real good moment. And I think, you know, the team, Tinkoff Saxo, are expecting a big performance from Nicholas Roche.
Well, he didn't perform particularly well last week in Romandy, but he's been riding in the Ardennes Classics as well. And Nicholas Roche is attempting to do something new this year. He's a man who normally rides the Tour in support of somebody and then has a go at the Vuelta. Last year he did particularly well in the Vuelta España, finishing 5th in the end. He says he's had a lot of support coming in to ride on home roads here at the Giro d'Italia in Ireland, I should say, pardon me, before we go to Italy. Is it an ask that's a bit too big for him, or is he a realistic opportunity for him to win the Giro this year?
Well, I think he could be, you know, on the podium, certainly. We see last year in the Vuelta he was in a real good position. Just the one day where the weather conditions changed suddenly from being very warm to very cold conditions, and that's where he lost all his time. So, you know, if he's in a position where, you know, he's on the podium, well, then everything is possible. And the final week, not be too concerned about the Tour of Romandy not showing too much, because the guys who are going to Giro, maybe they don't push it too much in the Tour de Romandy because they're thinking of the 3-week race coming up very quickly afterwards. I think Roche, the way the form is coming, is going in the right direction, and as the race go on, I would expect him to get better and better.
It's interesting how it's changed, hasn't it, the Tour de Romandy? It used to be, before sports science became so important in this sport, and all sport, of course, it used to be the race warming up going into the Giro d'Italia. Now, the Tour de Romandy's almost become a race for those going to the Tour de France a couple of months down the line.
Yes, it is a change. I think, you know, bike racing has changed in the past years. You know, when you see the Tour of Romandy, you'd see a lot of the guys who will be going for the Tour of France. Exactly what you said, they would be, you know, having to go for that, but also for the Tour of Italy now. And we know the classics and all of those races, you know, they have a program, and they target special events, certain events, and, you know, different riders, different events.
15 kilometres to go for Orica Green Edge. 7.19 seconds, 7.7 minutes and 19 seconds, pardon me, into this. Problems for Colombia all the way through. They're losing men. They will be our first team across the line. There's Rodolfo Torres Agueldo, Colombian rider. Of course, each and every one of this Team Colombia a national rider. They do have the national road champion this year. First time in a long time that we're going to see the national road jersey. But look at this for a scene. Hundreds of thousands of people on the side of the road in Belfast. It's a city of only 300,000 people, the Northern Irish capital, and they're riding up to a building that is hugely symbolic and very important to the change that we've seen in this region over the last 16 years since the Good Friday Agreement. That, of course, the building at the end of the avenue is the Stormont building. That's where the Northern Irish devolved government sits. Orica Green Edge then still riding through. Some real motors in there. Number 4 of this 9 were involved in the team that actually came second, just behind Omega Pharma Quickstep in that Trade Team World Championship team time trial in Florence last year. And look at this, everybody in pink. Another day to come tomorrow in Belfast. Then we move down to Dublin. It's been fantastic the way we've lived it since arriving here yesterday, Sean. I know you drove up from the Republic of Ireland yesterday, and everybody ready down there as well?
Well, not as much as we've seen up here, certainly in the last number of weeks. Belfast, all over Northern Ireland, they really took it on board. Down south, hasn't been anything like that. The last week it's got a bit of a buzz more, but I think, yeah, they will come out, and we will see the support coming out, certainly on the roadside. I think when they will see the first day here, tomorrow's stage, I think they will come out down from the stage into Dublin. They will come out in force.
Of course, we were supposed to start on a Saturday when the route was originally presented. Now, 22 seconds, the fastest time so far for Orica Green Edge, 7.9 kilometres in. We're going to get another time check at Oxford Street, which is 15.3 kilometres in. And of course, Orica Green Edge just asking the fans to stay off the side of the road there. This is where the climb does go up a bit. We're talking a maximum gradient of about 3% on the course today. Française des Jeux, led by Nasser Bouhanni for the sprints here. Sébastien Chavanel and Murilo Fischer will help them. The overall, not really a big objective looking down at this team. It's all about stage wins and trying to show off the jersey. This is a race where they used to bring Sandy Cassar, now retired. Française des Jeux on their way in their blue, and we're not really expecting them, Sean, to be big protagonists in terms of going for the pink jersey.
No, I don't think they will be really giving it 100%. It's all about getting through this stage, of course, you know, the sprints in the days to come, that's where they will be really trying to get, I think, some exposure from this Giro.
Well, the sprinters, very, very interesting, the duel that we're going to see in this particular Giro d'Italia. We've got Nasser Bouhanni here, but also Martin Kittel, Elia Viviani, and the old man himself, 40-year-old Alessandro Petacchi, is here at the Giro d'Italia, riding again when this time last year he'd retired from the sport. Française des Jeux on their way then. 4th team off of 22 here. 22 teams, 18 World Tour teams, and of course those 4 pro-continental teams that were invited. We've already seen one of the wild cards out onto the road. They are Colombia. They'll be joined by Neri Sottoli, who's the last team out today at 35 minutes past 7 local time. And of course, the Italian teams, Androni Giocattoli, who are the winners of the Coppa Italia, and Bardiani Valvoli, another of those teams invited. Tinkoff Saxa then attempting to do their best for Nico Roach. It's funny, I was at the Tour de Romandie last week, Sean, and Nicholas Roach was giving his mechanic a right old earful. All the training on the new position, the new bike over the winter, and the mechanics had used last year's setup. Is that a common thing that happens?
Well, I'm surprised to hear about that. Normally, you know, the mechanics would be pretty much aware of any change on position, and normally the time trial bike is something, you know, you have a setup there, and it's only when you go to the mechanic and say you want to make a change, you want to make some adjustment, they will go about and do that. So surprised if the mechanic made the adjustment of his own accord.
Well, Nico was giving him a right old telling off, in Italian as well, his own language, so he knew that he would understand. So Orica Green Edge pushing on and leaving one of their early motors behind. Mitchell Docker has gone for the moment. 8th for Orica Green Edge, but they're the fastest team so far here on stage 1 of the Giro d'Italia. Next off, Team Katusha. Big ambitions for this race and a strong leader with Joaquim Rodriguez Oliver. Maxim Belkov, Caruso, Gusev, Losada, Moreno and Paolini all in the team. And here, I think, as the clouds begin to darken and we get the first spots of rain, they'll be wanting to get out before the downpour comes. And Joaquim Rodriguez, well, yes, he wants to limit the damage here because they're not one of the strongest teams in the TTT. They have someone like Belkov who can push them along, but Sean, they'll be wanting to get in before the real rain comes because it's looking very nasty outside all of a sudden.
It's looking very much the rain is going to come down now, and that's the way it's been here. You know, you get a good run for a time, and then suddenly the clouds come in, and the rain is coming down. We can see the broilers are going up here around the finishing area, and for the teams who are out early, Ulrika Greenedge, big advantage because they have got a lot of the circuit here with dry conditions. For Katusha, you know, it's starting to get wet here, but still, it's not really that wet for the moment. But for the teams who are starting later, we could see all of this time trial of 21.7 kilometers could be on the wet roads, and that will have a huge disadvantage for the ones that are starting late. And Ulrika Greenedge, as I say, a strong team, and it's been a lot of discussion here in the last number of hours. You know, the strong time trial teams. The start orders are by lottery, so you know it's just what numbers come out of the hat. And lucky for Greenedge, it looks like they're going to get the best condition. Will it dry off again? We have to wait and see.
A long way until our last team go out at 19:35. Well over an hour and 15 minutes until that happens, so it could come down quickly, it could dry out again. We just do not know. The unpredictable nature of bike racing, and certainly 3-week racing. Grand Tour racing is here. That's why you're away at the break. We had another time split. That was Tinkoff Saxo, who went through 5 seconds slower after 7.9 kilometers up at Stormont than Orica Greenedge. They lead at the moment, and there's proof of what we were talking about. Rain spots on the lens. Orica Greenedge heading towards the end. We're still awaiting our first team across the finishing line. That will be Colombia. At the minute, they're averaging 49.5 kilometers per hour. Now, before the teams start to cross the line, just a reminder to get on Facebook if you can. Sign up to our Eurosport Facebook game, facebook.com/Eurosport, and you can join in. Pit your wits, challenge your friends in our Giro team time trial game. Find the app and sign up on our Facebook page. And I can tell you that if you're watching in the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland, there's a big prize offer as well. Team Colombia now, one of the narrower parts. For the most part, it's nice wide road, Sean, but the crowd there getting very, very narrow.
Yes, a little bit of tighten up there, but again, you know, normally the teams who went out and wrecked it very well. When you're coming to those points, well, then you just go through in single file, and we can see here the Colombia team, it's getting a bit scrappy there. They try to, you know, squeeze 2 riders through that tight section together, and that's not what you need to do. And also we can see here with the wet conditions now, it's making it technical, and as we know, some riders, you know, they can handle the wet conditions, they can get around the corners quite well, they can make the calculation good, but other riders are very nervous, and it's going to make it that bit more nervous for everybody again, because the risk of sliding off here is getting great now with the wet conditions.
Got to be careful. It's interesting to see the balance as Colombia lose another rider. Does that leave them with 5? I think it does. So they're inside the final 3 kilometers, and it's a balancing act here. They will not want to drop anybody else, because remember, in team time trialing, as we see the Colombian road champion Miguel Angel Rubiano pull off the back, another man drops for Orica Greenedge. Was that Peter Veining maybe? Perhaps looked a little like his wiry figure. Very, very interesting to see how many men, because it's a bit of a balance, Sean. You don't want to have the risk of somebody coming off in the final few hundred meters and then all that effort to sprint to the line being useless, really, because you take the time from the 5th rider.
Well, that is the problem with the wet conditions, the dangers, the risk is a bit more. So if you go down to 5 men into the final 3 kilometers, you're really, you know, pushing the risk limit out great because of the wet conditions. There's also the mechanical problem, and you know, we can see Orica Greenedge there. They're using their riders very well. You know, they're riding, giving their 100%. It's all calculated. You can see when the guys are getting dropped, they're just riding, giving it 100% for a certain amount of time, and then dropping off very quickly. Where with Colombia, you can see it's not organised. The guys are just getting into difficulty, not able to follow the pace, and getting blown out in that way. So you can see, you know, the special team time trial teams like Orica Greenedge, you can see the way they're working much better, much more smoothly.
So one rider drops for Francis Deschamps. There's the look back, and you can just see that weather, that rain starting to fill in around the hills. Time to look at the favourites, and I think there's unanimous agreement in the fact that Nairo Quintana, the leader of this Movistar team, is the big favourite here. The wind is a blowing, rain starting to come down, Movistar, though, have an excellently strong team around Nairo Quintana. Just look at this. Amador, Anton, Capecchi, Castroviejo, who's such a strong man for today. They've got support in the mountains, protection on the flat, and they've got real power in this time trial as well, Movistar.
Yes, a real good time trial team, and you know, they will be trying to do the best time possible. Also, you know, with the conditions now, they'll be, you know, making the calculation as well, not to take huge risks, but still they have to push it here, because with a guy of the talent of Quintana for the general classification, they have, you know, to put in a real good time here.
Colombia heading towards the finish. So important they keep these 5 men together on the road. Started losing riders and shedding them very, very early on. This is the final big right-hand turn coming up. And then it's 300 meters into the line. And as you can see, already splits starting to form as they sprint together. So important they keep it together here. Colombia looking to limit the damages and then use their skills as they go to the mountains. Certainly that last week looking very, very brutal. Colombia, though, the first team to finish. And it's exactly as we said. They lost a couple of seconds with that 5th rider coming across the line. Best time, the only time set so far, 26 minutes and 5 seconds. Colombia leading. Not for very long. Well, this is a view up towards Stormont. That's what happened as they went over. Yet again, Frances Desjeux eluding a rider. Arnaud Cortet, the man that's losing off. Back in time to catch Orica Greenedge steaming to the finish. Best time so far, the only time that has been set is Colombia. 26 minutes, 5 seconds. We expect this to be beaten strong. And look at this. Peter Vening second in line there. Who are they going to get across the line? That is a question, because with the weather conditions changing by the minute and almost a second here, the rain coming down, the wind really blowing, and black clouds building above this finish line and all on the course, this could be the time to watch, Sean.
Yes, well, I think, you know, we mentioned earlier in the programme, Orica Greenedge, a real strong team, a specialist team, you know, winning in the Tour de France last year, winning the team time trial, so they're really up for it. As we can see here, they're giving it their all to the line.
Here we go then. Who's going to cross the line first? It's a race to go across. We're told that there's no plan to put anybody in particular across the line. 24 minutes, 42 seconds, 1 minute and 23 quicker than Team Colombia. That is a time that's going to take some beating. Now then, who goes across there? Looks like Brett Lancaster very, very close to front. Svein Tuft is the man on the front, and I think he came across first. Lotto Belisol to begin their Giro d'Italia. Odd expected to be one of the stronger teams really making the race at this Giro. But their lineup does look a little stronger on paper than it did last season in Italy, I think. A shame that there's no Andre Greipel for the sprints. He's only just returned to racing following a nasty crash in the spring. This is their lineup. Maxime Montfort expected to go for the overall, and Adam Hansen. It's an 8th Grand Tour consecutively. He finished all 3 last season, all 3 the season before, and he was a stage winner the year before that as well. Igor Anton, expected to be a big, big deluxe domestique even in the mountains. He goes back to Monte Zoncolan this year, where he won the last time he rode. But this time out, he's the man working for Nairo Quintana. And yes, there's all the talk about Nairo Quintana as a climber, Sean, but let's not forget he's proved it a couple of times with Tour de Basque Country. He's a man that can time trial as well.
Well, he's a one that can, you know, defend very well in the mountains. He's a super climber. Time trial, he can defend very well. And it's going to be interesting. The concern I would have for the Giro, the conditions, we could get a lot of cold conditions again. Hopefully we don't get anything like last year. The Tour de France, as we know, the Colombians, they really thrive in the warm conditions. So hopefully that, you know, the conditions will not be anything we had last year in the Giro. But if we get a number of wet days, I think Quintana could have difficulty performing at his best.
Vladimir Gusev at the back. Whilst you're away at the break, we saw Joaquim Rodriguez right at the back in formation, not really struggling, but again, this is one of the areas that you've got to take very carefully, and one rider coming a crop of that. It was Gusev himself who had a bit of a problem. And again, there are 12 curves and turns on this circuit, but only 2 that you've really got to be careful of, Sean.
Yes, well, two, you've got to be careful of, and dry conditions. But now, as it's getting wet, you have to, be a bit more careful in a lot of the corners, the 12 corners, or some of them where you have to knock down your pace. You cannot go full gas into them, and to make the calculation right, that's always a little bit difficult. And when you're the leader on the front of the team, you're always concerned that you take a little bit too much, push the boat out a bit too much, and take a number of your teammates out. And that is always, that nervous time. You're just a little bit concerned about that.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. How do you address that balance? Of course, you want to get a good time and start the Giro, but remember, it's a 3-week-long race, and if you're a team leader, chances are you're going to be good in the mountains, you're going to be good in the individual time trials coming up, and you really don't want to give 110% here, certainly if the roads are a little slippy, and lose the Giro on the first day.
Well, if you take a team like Movistar with Nero Quintana, he's not going to really like going around the corners at the high speed. So I think they will have to make the calculation that he can get around the corners comfortable enough with him, and do not put him into difficulty. Certainly don't put him in the difficulty where he's going to push it too much and maybe crash out. So you have to make that calculation. That's something between the team. They will talk about that in the team talk in the bus before they start, after doing the reconnaissance of the circuit this morning. And so it's a matter of making the calculation, certainly not to overcook it, but try and limit your time loss as much as possible.
Talking of times, here we are, first 5 teams through that 7.9 kilometre first time check up at Stormont, seat of the regional government, of course. Orica Green Edge leading by 5 seconds from Tinkoff Saxo. Interesting to see what sort of time Movistar come up with here. Actually, a very, very low number of Spanish riders in the race this year. Of course, Spain, one of the great historical cycling nations, one of course, the very great Grand Tours, Vuelta a España in August and September. There's only 12 Spaniards in the race this year. That's with the number that we're in 2010, the joint lowest for a long, long time. We've had as many as 30 or 40 Spanish riders in the last few years. Now, Nairo Quintana and Movistar riding up to this time check. Hard bit of road this. If you heard earlier on, you will have heard Sean Kelly saying that the road surface has changed here. It makes you a little slower. Certainly with the slick surface we've got now, we're starting to see a couple of riders off the back for Movistar as well. I can tell you they are 26 seconds slower than Orica Green Edge at the moment. Tinkoff Saxo coming into the finish. Got to keep it together. Got to keep 5 men together. They've got enough there. Not really pushing it to pull off 2 men, but they've got to make sure that quickly they get 5 men over the line. Quick word as well for Chris Juul Jensen, who's also an Irishman, rides a Danish licence, grew up in the Republic of Ireland. So 1 rider over, 2, 3, and an antagonising wait for that 5th rider over there. 2nd best time so far for Tinkoff Saxo. And at the end, Tinkoff Saxo 23 seconds down on Orica Green Edge on the first stage. How's that going to look for Nico Roach?
Well, I think 23 seconds, they'll be probably reckoning that they could be a bit closer, but again, the conditions we have to remember, they had more of the wet road, so you have to count that, factor that in. So I think that's where there's a number of seconds lost there by Tinkoff, where Orica Green Edge, they had a lot more of a dry parcours.
Trek Factory Racing led by Adriano Baffi in the car. They've got a team that is more centred around stage wins, with Giacomo Nizzolo, who didn't manage to get a stage win in Romandy but left a decent impression. He's their sprinter, guided by Danilo Hondo. For the overall, they'll be looking at Julian Arredondo, one of the 2 leaders, alongside Robert Kieselowski. We leave you with Katusha as we go off for a quick commercial break here on Eurosport Cycling. On our way to Stormont, Lotto Belisol out there on the course. A couple of riders shifting up the back. And there you could see Movistar on the way back. Road split in half. Movistar setting the 4th best intermediate time. Orica Green Edge the quickest. Interesting that Movistar at the intermediate slower than Colombia. Good 3 seconds. I wonder how much that is the conditions affecting things, and of course Colombia not expected to be anywhere near the top teams. But of course, Tinkoff Saxo coming in 23 seconds down on Orica Green Edge at the end of play. And Movistar having a bit of time to make up on the second time in. We were talking before the break about the balance between the risk that you set off. Belkin at this Giro d'Italia. Wilco Kelderman could be an interesting one for them as we get to the mountains. Of course, they've had the problems with Robert Hazing having to undergo that surgery. The news is that went well and he's ready. He wants his training program back. This is the 9 lining up at the Giro d'Italia, though. Stefan Kruijswijk back at the race that really helped discover him. Jetse Bol might be giving a bit of freedom in the sprints. It's a strange team, really, for Belkin, and one that has to be described as slightly weak, you feel, Sean?
Well, I think it's a team that's not really a big favourite here. You know, when we haven't got Getting, for example, but again, some very strong rollers here, so it's not a case where we will not see them do anything, because stage victories, I think, you know, they're very capable of doing that. If they get settled into the race, we could see them, you know, taking a stage or maybe 2 stages from this Giro.
But that's what they'll be looking for. Française Deschamps aren't going to win this stage already. Looks like they're going to be slower than Colombia as well, and I think we're already starting to see those wet conditions start to affect things. Again, luck of the draw, getting up and getting out early. The good news is it's actually not raining very hard at the finish line here, so perhaps a chance for the roads to start to dry out if the wind gets up. Inside the final 200 metres for Française Deschamps. FDJ.fr as they're now known. Got good men together. 6 men in the final team that will cross the line. They will cross the line and they'll be in 3rd place as it stands. 1 minute and 18 seconds down. The leader's still the team that was 2nd out on the course today, and the pre-team time trial favourites, Orica Green Edge. Look down on Belfast City Hall. This is the Giro d'Italia Irish style. 2 stages here in Belfast. In fact, we're going to have the very same finish line tomorrow and the same start line. Big, interesting stage that will finish in Donegal Square, the Belfast City Hall. The Titanic Memorial Gardens are placed here as well. Belfast dressed in pink completely, having a wonderful walk around last night. Beautiful to see that the whole city and the whole community have taken to this event. One of the pre-race favourites, Joaquim Rodriguez, back with his team Katusha. He's the man at the front here, wearing number 181. Right at the back is Angel Vicioso with Maxim Belkov. Vladimir Gusev still in there. And here we are with Movistar on their way into the finish. 17 minutes and 23 seconds into their ride. Done a lot of work over the winter of Movistar. They're a team that's had a new bike supplier in the last couple of years. They've had new kit suppliers this year, so brand new skin suits to get used to. And they've actually spent a lot of time down in the south of England at the wind tunnels. And Alex Dowsett, British time trial champions, helped them out with a lot of their research. And a lot of their riders improving in time trial. Dennis Van Dert is the man that's peeling off. Lotto losing a man quite early into their ride. Well, 13 minutes in, there's just 5 riders I can see left still for Lotto. That's worrying. Yes. Certainly with half of their time trial almost still to go. And
we could see that the riders were worrying as well. The riders in the front were looking about. They could see that Van den Dert was losing contact there, and I don't think you know, that was certainly not the plan. And they look about, what do you do? And at a moment when something happened like that, you have to make the decision very quickly. Do you continue on and take the risk with 5 men? And I think, yeah, there was a little bit of hesitation certainly there from the Lotto Belisol riders.
Eugenio Alafacci is the Italian rider at the back here. One of 3 Italian riders riding for Trek Factory Racing. That is, we go back now to Maxim Belkov. And he's a man that's been distanced Belkov, you would have thought, been very, very important as a motor here for Katusha. Again, we don't see the whole team time trial on the camera. Perhaps he's a man who's just done a lot of work over the opening kilometres.
Yes, I think that would be the case. And the earlier shots we did see of Katusha, as we can see
Rodriguez, it is himself.
Rodriguez, yes, is just getting the people to keep back a bit off the road. Rodriguez, in the earlier part, we did see he was not taking the pace setting on the front. He was sitting there, but when they got into the more difficult section around Stormont, where it kicks up a bit, he was going to the front. So I think there's other riders like Belkov, for example. He's probably after doing a lot on the flatter sections.
Europcar come to the race for the first time with their current sponsor. They've moved up to World Tour level now, even though Jean-René Bernardot's outfit have been here under a different name before when they were Bbox Bouygues Telecom. 6 Frenchmen represent the team, and a Japanese rider, of course, Yuyika Arashiro, who's been riding fantastically well through the Ardennes so far. National champion of Japan on the road. Not the case in the time trial. Everybody riding here, riding in their Europcar dark green jerseys. They're led by Pierre Roland here, a Frenchman who has won 2 stages on the Tour de France, Alpe d'Huez and La Toussière as well. He'll be looking towards that brutal 3rd week of the Giro d'Italia. Team Europcar on the way, and just a little word on the course in total, Sean. It really does get ridiculously hard in that 3rd week. We heard this described as a more humane Giro, but it's not really going to be the case, is it?
Well, it's certainly a real difficult final week when you look at, the stages. We have at least 4, 5 really difficult stages, not including the individual mountain time trial, which is also a very difficult one. So it's going to be important that, you finish very strong in this Giro. The weather conditions as well, that always have a bearing. So if we get, bad weather conditions in the mountain stages, it will be a really difficult race.
Joaquim Rodriguez is going to lead his team into the final 250 metres of its opening stage of the Giro d'Italia 2014. The requisite 5 riders back, a look behind and another nervous look from Joaquim Rodriguez, wanting to keep everybody together as he puts the pace on. Not going to be the winning time on the day. Team Katusha coming across with 26 minutes, 15 seconds. At the moment, they are 5th over the line, but 5th, Sean, of 5 teams. They're the slowest team that we've seen so far.
Yes, and I think the weather conditions are starting to tell. Starting out all the time trial on the wet roads, it's just starting to tell now. We can see the results, because normally Katusha, I think they would be much closer to the leading team, Ulrika Greenedge, but unfortunately the weather conditions have cost them quite a lot of time.
Oh, the main thing for Rodriguez is the fact that it's not his big GC rivals who've taken the best time. Ulrika Greenedge leading by 23 seconds from Tinkoff Saxo, Francis Desjeux Columbia and Team Katusha. We've had 5 of our 22 teams across the line. Movistar heading in towards the 3 kilometre to go banner. That rain, again, starting to come down a little harder once more. And those roads are really, really wet now. Oh, look at that. Riders going into the crowd, a little look behind them. We've already seen nervous riders asking the crowd to stay back here. This is just going to get worse and worse if this continues to come down. Look at this on the left-hand side, Sean.
Yes, one of the riders going on the inside there of the island. Very lucky to stay upright. We could see he touched the cone there and knocked it over. And, that's something, I think, taking a little bit too much risk, because when you have a rider like Quintana, the team, you have to, make the calculation that you do not get into difficulty. And they were certainly pushing the limit on that corner.
They certainly were. The man who went into the corner was Gorka Aguirre, number 127 at the back here. Sneaking minute there. I was a little scared. I thought it was a 1-2-1 and it was Mr. Quintana. Luckily, he stayed nice and central. Movistar hoping to do their best to come in quickly. They've struggled all the way through. They haven't looked particularly comfortable to me.
Well, yes, not looking as comfortable as some of the other teams, maybe. When you look at Ulrika Greenedge, for example, they look so smooth. It's unfair the way they make it look so easy. But again, the times, as we can see, the time of Movistar, will be interesting to see what they can, finish on here. The interesting one is Quintana. He's, riding with everybody. He's doing an equal amount of work for such a small, tiny little guy. It's amazing, that he's able to contribute as much as he has in this time trial. Where if you look at Katusha, Rodriguez, in the first number of kilometres, he wasn't contributing at all, but he's also coming back from an accident. We know in the Amstel Gold race, which he had a very heavy fall, I think he is still carrying a little bit of that injury all the time. Well, he had rib problems, he had to have x-rays. Very, very worried about his participation in those ensuing races and trying to be right for the Giro d'Italia. On the way up to storm it now are Belkin. Dutch team riding in the green, white and black, as we can see. And again, it looks as though it's going to be quite a slow time, relatively slow, considering that we've had the Orica Green Edge go through very, very quickly at this point. Those interested, by the way, Orica Green Edge average speed, 52.7 kilometres per hour. Nowhere near the fastest ever Giro team time trial. That was set back in 2006 between Piacenza and Cremona, and that was an average of 56.8 kilometres per hour for the team time trial. So they're going to go through the timing check. It's a great view down here, Sean. Absolutely brilliant. You can see the flags from the different nations. Of course, we've got the Italian flags as Belkin come through 43 seconds back. Plenty of Colombian fans as well. Well, looking to the Italian fans here, though, Lampremerida, the next on, in their traditional pink. There's less of it in their jersey this year. Bright pink all the way through in the last couple of seasons. But now we're going to get some important news from the finish line. 300 metres to go for Movistar. They have 5 riders left, so they've got to get them all over the line. It is at least going to be the 3rd best time, and you'd expect them to come in better than Française des Jeux here. So Movistar going to set the 3rd best time so far. What is going to be the difference to Orica Green Edge? 25.37 as one stray rider comes back a second further back. 55 seconds slower than the fastest team so far. That, though, on wet roads, most of it. An angry look back from Jonathan Castroviejo. Nairo Quintana on the right-hand side, pushing himself across. I think it was Andre Amador who came across 5th. Back with Europcar. Well, a lot of the general classification contenders, Sean, I think, won't be too disappointed with the fact that Orica Green Edge may well win this at a canter, because they've got no clear general classification contender, and the differences between the main guys may not be as big as the differences between potential stage winners Green Edge and the rest of the guys. Yes, I think that is going to be a little bit of an easier one for the teams who are out on the wetter conditions compared to the Orica Green Edge, and you can see that it is, you know, taking its toll now. Looking at Movistar, of course, they were at the at that 7.9 kilometre mark. They were already at 26 seconds down, and at the finish here we see that 55 seconds down on Orica Green Edge at the moment. So yeah, I think it just all the way through they were just losing that little bit of ground, and it looks like as we talked in the early part of our programme, Orica Green Edge will be posting up a time which would hold up there for a long time. It looks like the way it worked out now with the dry conditions for them, it's certainly going to hold up for a very long time if they don't go on and win this one. Could be a very happy birthday for Svein Tuth, 37 years of age, Canadian rider, multiple national champion. He was a silver medalist as well at the World Championship time trial back in 2008 in Varese, I think it was. Could be a pink jersey for him. Lotto Belisol. 5 men together for them still. Again, look at all that nervous looking around. It's how much time are they losing doing this? Well, I think a lot of the riders and a lot of teams are just overcooking it on this corner, just, you know, getting into a little bit of difficulty, and then naturally you look around to see when you feel that, yeah, it's very, very tight and you just about make it. The normal reaction is you look about to see is everybody else there, you check, because if you have a guy who will lose a lot of ground, who will slow up maybe totally and come to a standstill, well, then you have to knock off your pace immediately, and that's the reason the guys are checking to make sure that they have their 5 men together at least. Pierre Roland at the back, number 161, joined by 167, who is Pierre Kemeneur. 6 Frenchmen in this Europcar team, which is a French team. 1 German, Bjorn Thurau, Japanese aforementioned rider Yukiya Arashiro, and Davide Malacarne riding the Giro for the first time in quite a few years.
Time for you British fans to get excited. Team Sky were supposed to come to the Giro with Richie Porte as the leader. That hasn't happened. Most probably will be Dario Cataldo. Very disappointing that Pete Kenyon didn't recover from his illness in time to compete and have that pace, because he's a man who could have done really well in this Giro d'Italia. But exciting for stage wins, the likes of Ben Swift, who's been going so well this year. Sebastian Henao riding a Grand Tour at 20 years of age, the youngest rider in the whole race, the Colombian. What's Sky going to do at this Giro d'Italia, Sean?
Well, it's an interesting one. I think when you look at the lineup here, the team time trial would be an objective for them. Unfortunately, again, the conditions are not to keep harping about it, but you know, they're going to
it's an important factor, isn't it?
It's a very important factor, so we have to, you know, just keep on reminding ourselves of that. But it will be interesting now to see Team Sky what they can do here, because they are certainly a real powerhouse as a team for a time trial, and against the weather conditions, I'm interested to see what sort of a time they can post up.
Ben Swift on the right hand side, Cataldo just behind him. Constantin Svitzo as well, who's a former winner of a Giro stage. And let's give a special mention to Philip Dijkman. Never in his dreams could he imagine starting a Grand Tour on his home island of Ireland. And it's a big moment for the other Irishmen. We mentioned there were three. Of course, a quick mention for Chris Juul Jensen as well, who grew up in Dublin despite being registered as a Danish rider. And for the locals around the whole island of Ireland, north and south, of course, the race taking in both regions, it is fantastic to see some home heroes, not since the days of yourself and Stephen Roach, as many Irishmen started a Grand Tour.
Yes, well, it's great to see, and I think you know, the support we're seeing here, the Irish people are really coming out, of course, to support the Irish riders, but to support all the teams as well and all the riders. And talking on Philip Dijkman, it'll be interesting to see, because he's coming back from injury. He broke his collarbone there in February, out for a while, and it could be, you know, a good thing that he's going to come back into this race. And if he can improve as the race go on, well, then I think we should see him doing really good performances. And as we have seen in the past in Vuelta, he's, you know, capable of winning stages. I'd not be surprised if he have a real big go for stage victory in this Giro.
Lotto Belisol next to come across the line. Looks as though they're going to be a little slower than Katusha by 1 single second. 7th at the minute, 1 minute and 34 down with their average race speed, 49.568 kilometers per hour. Lotto Belisol, the Belgian team, riding across the line into the masses of pink, just about getting those 5 men across the line. And as we saw, they were very worried, nervous even coming across the line in those final few kilometers. Did they have enough men? All that looking around, trying to dodge the rain as well. Time for us to go for a quick commercial break. First time this century that a Grand Tour started on a Friday. Extra rest day added. We'll have a rest day this Monday instead of going through the complete first 9 stages. We're watching Lampre at the moment climbing up to Stormont. Lampre are losing one of their riders to the climb there. Winner Ancona. And Ancona, pardon me, is the Colombian rider. Came second, I think, in the Colombian Championships this year. Rubiano winning that jersey last month. Pan-flat course. This is Europe Cup. So many people along the route. In fact, restaurants along the route have been serving Italian dishes today. It's the complete Giro d'Italia experience. And it wouldn't be the Giro d'Italia without the lime green of what was Liquigas, now Cannondale. And, of course, the 2-time winner, Ivan Basso. Basso heading up an almostly exclusive Italian team. Young German rider Michael Koch in 63, the only rider not Italian. So Basso to lead them off as we go back to Trek Factory Racing. Their finale managed to keep quite a few riders together. Quite sure what to expect of Trek at this Giro d'Italia. A lot of talk about Julian Arredondo before, the Colombian rider. This is the time they've put in. Probably going to be slightly slower than Movistar. Quicker than Française des Jeux, though. At the moment, it's going to be good enough for 4th place on the day. Trek Factory Racing a minute down on Orica Green Edge. And as far as the teams that went out when the rain had begun to fall, it's not a bad time.
No, ain't a bad time, but again, you know, I think they will be saying, unfortunately, the conditions, you know, we've lost quite a number of seconds there, but I think, yeah, a minute down, considering everything, it's not a bad time, but they would be expecting maybe a little bit better, and it's a pity that we got these conditions, because if we had dry conditions, I think the top of the leaderboard would be a bit closer in seconds at this point.
Are you a fan of team time trialling, Sean, and also a fan of starting races with them? And not everybody's a fan of them.
Well, I think you know, it's good for the spectators, for TV. It's nice to see team time trialing. You know, there's some teams will say team trialing is good because they have a really strong team and they can, you know, gain advantage there. Other riders who are good for general classification but might not have a strong team to do a good performance. Of course, they're going to say, well, I'm at a disadvantage here because it's not an individual event, where the overall classification is a race. It's, you know, it is individual. So, you know, there's some teams for it and some against.
Team Sky, who won the team time trial at the Giro d'Italia last year. I think it was on the island of Ischia, the small island outside in the Bay of Naples. Beautifully stunning, and it was very, very warm on that day. Of course, we would have had awful weather on the rest of the Giro d'Italia, but this year we've started off with the bad stuff. We hope that the nice stuff awaits us once we get down to Italy and Bari, a stage finishing in the southeast of Italy on Tuesday afternoon. Lampre Merida. Cameraman just needs to give us a swipe of the lens, and this is the speed they're travelling at, up at 60 kilometres per hour almost. Team Sky riding on the flat, riding strongly. 191 is Dario Cataldo, former Italian time trial champion. They've still got strong riders here, and they are one of the teams that really does pay big attention to this discipline. 198 at the back is Konstantin Sitsov. Chris Sutton getting a very late call-up. The Australian sprinter suffered a very, very nasty knee injury at the start of this year. Absolutely horrible, horrific injury, in fact. It's good to see him back on his bike, riding a Grand Tour again, the Aussie. And they're going to get a great welcome here, Team Sky. One of the home teams in inverted commas. And of course, they have Philip Dijkman. Good to see Dijkman back at World Tour level as well. He's a man who risked a great deal for his career. I think that fantastic story that he tells of pretending that he was still at university to his parents and not wanting to tell them that he'd become a pro cyclist and thrown his university degree away at Liverpool. Now he's racing in front of the Northern Irish Parliament. Stormont. 111 metres high there. And decked out in pink as well. Discover Northern Ireland indeed, and a lot of people are doing for the first time. A number of Italian, Spanish speakers in our hotel this morning. Scandinavians were over as well. This is fantastic. The local government have spent £3 million British pounds in attracting this race here, but they already say that in advertisement and of course in what they've raked in so far in terms of benefit, it's been worthwhile for them. And foreign starts are a funny thing. This is the 11th time that the Giro d'Italia started away from Italy. It first started in San Marino a long time ago. This is the first time we've been off continental Europe, and as Team Sky set the 9th best time so far, 38 seconds down at that time check. That's a slow one. We see Giant Shimano beginning their Giro d'Italia as well.
4, 3, 2, 1.
The countdown to the Dutch team. They've come here looking for stage wins. Marcel Kittel not expected to ride the whole Giro. It's in for 10, 12 stages perhaps. But they also have Luka Mezgec, who's very, very quick as well, and a decent lead-out train to help them. Today, it'll be all about getting the fastest time possible. Belkin then. 6 men for them as they come into the final few hundred metres. And the battle is to try and better Movistar's time. Not really going to happen for them. And they will be on the same time or a little slower, 1 second slower than Trek Factory Racing. Belkin in 5th place as it stands. 9 teams now over the line. So Belkin across the line. All about thinking about those medium mountain stages, those intermediate stages for Belkin, see what they can produce. Sky, who've set a relatively poor time so far, losing Chris Sutton off the back. Right, we were just talking about from Australia. Of course, the conditions have changed, Sean, but Sky will be very, very disappointed with that intermediate time. 9th out of 12 going through that 7-kilometre check.
Yes, I think they will, because when you make the calculation against the other teams who are just out ahead, Sky would be expecting, you know, to be a little bit faster than those teams, because they have equal conditions out there. So will they be able to, you know, gain in the end? Now that will be the question. As we can see, they have 6-7 riders still, so you know, still quite a strong squad here together.
Strong squad together indeed. Ben Swift at the back. Now to Canadell and Ivan Basso. 36 years of age now, Ivan Basso. We'll talk about him and the rest of the favourites as we get to the final few teams. We're off for one more commercial break before we do that.